under corporate governance that are to be formed in each and every organization that we were discussing. We had started with the first committee, that is Audit Committee. So we will cover today Audit Committee, and we will also try to complete with the other committees. Yes, I hope that you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we will discuss what are the powers of Audit Committee, and then we will proceed to the other committees. So the Audit Committee has the power to call for the comments of auditors about internal control system. As we are talking about Audit Committee, the Audit Committee has been given vast power that we had discussed in the last session, that how the power which is given to the Audit Committee can be called as that they are having huge power, great power. The most important point that we had discussed is that the chairman of the Audit Committee shall be an independent director. So the most powerful person of the Audit Committee is chairman, and chairman is independent. So all the powers which are listed in the rules and regulations of corporate governance can be actually exercised and implemented by the committee. Why? Because the chairman is independent director. So first, power of Audit Committee. Audit Committee has the power to call for the comments of auditor for about internal control system. Very simple and very important. They have the power that they can call for the comments of internal control systems. The auditors can suggest that if any changes are to be implemented, are to be say introduced in the internal control system of the organization, and if the suggestions are good, that can be immediately implemented. That is first power of the Audit Committee. Second, Audit Committee has the authority to investigate into any matter in relation to the terms specified in terms of reference referred to it by the board. For the purpose, the committee has the power to obtain of professional advice from external sources. Again, very important point, that if any point is there by the Audit Committee, or any point which has been referred to the Audit Committee by the Board of Directors, that this point may have certain, say, irregularities, or certain things are not clear in this particular statement. Now, in that case, the Audit Committee has the power that they can also engage the services of external agencies. If they feel that they have to seek the expertise of certain external agencies, then they have the power that they can approach, or they can invite the external agencies also to investigate in the matter. So that is the power, and all the expenses will be incurred by the organization. The auditors of a company and key managerial personnel have a right to be heard in the meeting of audit committee when it considers auditor's report shall not have the right to vote. Now here, the auditors, when they are presenting the audit report to the audit committee, they have a right to be heard. Right to be heard means that suppose if some queries are raised by the audit committee, the auditors shall be given a chance, or the company staff which is presenting that audit report, they shall be given a chance to prove their point. It should not happen that audit committee is taking the decision on its own. So a chance has to be given. If the audit committee feels that certain irregularities are there, then the person who is responsible for preparation of those statements, that person shall be given a chance to clarify the doubts raised by the audit committee. But that doesn't mean that that person is given more authority than the audit committee. So audit committee has the final right to accept or not to accept those explanations which are given by the key managerial personnel. Now, some other powers that we are going to now discuss is investigate any activity within the terms of reference, seek information from any employee, obtain outside legal or professional advice, secure attendance of outsiders with relevant expertise if it considers necessary. So the power of audit committee that it can investigate in any matter which is referred to the audit committee. So any matter which falls in the purview of audit or preparation of financial statements, now that matter can be investigated by the audit committee. Independent inquiry can be done, set by the audit committee. They can call any employee and they can ask questions related to that matter to a employee who is working in the finance department, or he or she may be not working in the finance department, but if the committee feels that yes, they know certain information, then that employee can also be called for hearing in front of the committee. Next is that the committee can engage the services of external experts also, that we have already discussed. Secure attendance of outsiders with relevant expertise if they consider necessary. So these were some of the key authorities of the audit committee. We will not discuss all the authorities because there are a number of authorities, or it will take too much of time. So important authorities only we will be discussing. Next is, now we will move on to the next committee, which is called as Nomination and Remuneration Committee. As from the name itself, we can very easily understand the committee is about what, or what will be the role and responsibility of the committees. Nomination and Remuneration Committee. So here we are talking about nomination at the board of directors. How the directors are nominated on the board of directors of a particular company, and how their remuneration are finalized. Those rules and regulations related to nomination of a director at the board, as well as how much salary, how much incentive, how much remuneration is to be paid to a particular director, is to be decided by the remuneration committee. And that committee is called as Nomination and Remuneration Committee. So all public companies with a paid up capital of 10 crore rupees or more, or public committees having turnover of 100 crore rupees, all public companies having an aggregate outstanding loans or borrowings or debentures, deposits exceeding 50 crores or more. So here it is mentioned very clearly that which are the companies where it is mandatory, where it is compulsory that this committee has to be constituted. So that they have mentioned that how much paid up capital should be there, what should be the turnover of the company. If the paid up capital is less, is the turnover is less, then it is not compulsory for the company to constitute this nomination and remuneration committee. Now, who are the members of these committee? How many members are to be included in this nomination and remuneration committee, that we are now going to discuss. The committee so constituted by the board shall consist of three or more non-executive director, out of which not less than one half shall be independent directors. The chairperson of the company, whether executive or non-executive, may be appointed as member of nomination and remuneration committee, but he shall not chair the committee in case the committee is listed. Chairman of the committee shall be an independent director. So in the audit committee, we had seen that minimum three directors should be there, and more than 50% should be independent directors, and the chairman should not be the executive director, but it has to be independent director. Same is the case here also. Here it is said half. There it was more than half. Now here also it is mentioned very clearly that the chairman should be an independent director. He cannot be an executive director of the organization. Now, functions of the committee. First function is identify persons who are qualified to become directors and who may be appointed in senior management in accordance with the criteria laid down. So, whatever the criteria of the organization is, the first function of nomination and remuneration committee is that they need to check the criteria, and then they should search for eligible or qualified candidates who fits into that particular position of director at the board of directors. So they have to identify the persons who are qualified to become directors and who can be appointed at the senior management position also. So they not only be searching for independent directors, but they will be searching for executive directors also. That suppose if general manager of an organization has resigned and there is a vacation, the position is vacant. Now this position can be filled by a candidate who is suggested by nomination and remuneration committee. Next, formulate the criteria for determining qualification, positive attributes, and independence of a director, and recommend the board policy relating to remuneration for the directors, key managerial personnel, and other employees. So here, this nomination and remuneration committee is given a power that they can decide upon the qualification that should be required, then positive attributes, that what are the qualities of the director, what is the prior contribution of the director who can be included in the board, what is the prior experience. So all these things are suggested by the nomination and remuneration committee to the board of directors, and then it may be finalized by the board. So not only the qualification of the independent directors, but they can set the qualification of the key managerial personnel also. While formulating the policy, the committee shall consider the following. Now that guideline is also included, that when the qualification of director is to be finalized, what parameters or what points are to be considered by the committee, that is also mentioned in the guidelines. That says the level and composition of remuneration is reasonable and sufficient to attract, retain, and motivate directors of quality required to run the company successfully. Now, how much remuneration can be given to the director? That is to be decided or suggested by the remuneration and nomination committee. But on what parameters this is to be decided? So it is said that the remuneration should be sufficient to attract and retain and motivate directors of quality. That if the company wants to attract quality people on the board, it means that company shall pay them handsomely. Then only the directors will get attracted towards to joining the board of directors of a particular company. How much attendance fees the company has agreed to pay, what will be the total remuneration, what will be the incentives, what all benefits will be given to the directors, all these things shall be finalized, keeping in mind by the remuneration and nomination committee, that if we want to attract the quality staff or quality this directors or key managerial position employees, then the company has to see to it that the package is attractive. So that is the responsibility of the nomination and remuneration committee. They have to prepare the criteria, they have to finalize the remuneration which they are suggesting to be paid to the new directors or existing directors, and they should send this proposal to the company's board. Now here board of directors will decide that whether the suggestions are to be accepted or not. In that case, the remuneration committee can make the presentation that why they feel that this much of amount is necessary to attract good people at the board. Because if quality people are to be attracted, if the experts are to be attracted to the organization, The package should be attractive. It should not happen that the package is not at all attractive. One IT company is paying, say, 5 lakh rupees, and the other IT company is paying 2 lakh rupees. Both the IT companies are having, say, same, they are having same type of turnover. Sorry, more or less same turnover they are having. So one company has decided that it will be paying 5 lakh rupees to the directors, whereas the other company has decided that it will be paying 2 lakh to the directors. Now, in this situation, the company which is paying more is in a position to attract more expert or more qualified director than the company which is paying 2 lakh rupees. So the package, which includes not only the salary but which also includes the incentives and benefits which is included in that particular package, shall be made attractive. Next one, relationship of remuneration to performance is clear and meets appropriate performance benchmark. Very important point. Once the package is decided of the director and the director has been conveyed that you will be getting this package, the most important thing which should be attached to this package is the performance standards, performance parameters. It should be very clearly stated in the package itself that if you perform to this standard, then definitely your package is applicable to you. But if your performance does not matches with the standards set by the organization, then your package may come down. So that parameters, that performance standard shall be included in the package. Otherwise, what will happen if the performance parameters are not included? Even if the person is not performing as a director, independent director or executive director or non-executive director, the person will definitely be thinking that whether I perform or not, this package is fixed. Why? Because the company has not mentioned in the package that what is expected in return of this package from the particular director. So it is mentioned very clearly that the package shall include the performance criteria also. Next one, remuneration of directors, key personnel, and senior management involves balance between fixed and incentive pay, reflecting short and long term performance objectives appropriate to the working of the company and its goal. So, this we have just discussed that package doesn't mean salary only, it also includes what the director or key managerial personnel will be getting in the short term and in the long term. That is the incentives, the benefits which the company has agreed to attach to this package. So this will be the salary plus this incentive plus this benefits you will be getting throughout your tenure of a director in the company. Next, next committee. Now we will move on to stakeholders relationship committee. Now, stakeholder, here we know that what is the meaning of stakeholders. So, the board of directors of a company which constitutes more than 1,000 shareholders, debenture holders, deposit holders, and other security holders at any time during the financial year shall constitute stakeholders relationship committee. So the committee which is constituted to take care of the relationship of the company and the shareholders is called as stakeholders committee. Now, stakeholder relationship committee shall consist of a chairperson who shall be a non-executive director and such member as may be decided by the board. So here again, the the chairperson of the board shall be a non-executive director and not an executive director. The main function of the committee is to consider and resolve the grievances of security holders of the company. So the main function is to resolve the grievances of security holders of the company. Now here it is mentioned very clearly that the main function, main role of this committee is to take care of the interest of the stakeholders. And when we are talking about here stakeholders, we are talking particularly about the external stakeholders. External stakeholders means, and that too, we are talking more about the shareholders, the people who are holding the shares of the company. So the main role to be performed is that in case if some of the shareholders are having any grievances, any complaints, any doubts relating to their shares or relating to any policy or related to the dividend that is to be paid to them, if such doubts exists with the shareholders, the responsibility or the main role of the this committee is they have to settle these grievances or complaints raised by the shareholders. That is their first and important this role. Now, penal provisions under the Companies Act, in case the company does not comply and with constitution of audit committee, nomination and remuneration committee, and relationship committee, whenever required, the company shall be punishable with a fine which shall not less than 1 lakh rupees, but which may be extended to 5 lakh rupees, and every officer of the company who is in default shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine which shall not less than 25,000 rupees, but which may extend to 1 lakh rupees or both. Now, to see to it that these three committees, that is the audit committee, the nomination and remuneration committee, and the stakeholder relationship committee, these committees are to be properly constituted by each and every organization which comes under the applicability of these committees, as well as these companies should function according to the rules and regulations mentioned. If it is not constituted properly, or if one of the committee is not constituted at all by the organization, in that case, what punishments or what penal actions can be taken against the company, that is again mentioned very clearly in the Companies Act 2013. How much fine can be imposed on the company, and not only fine, But the person who is responsible for implementation of these, if that person is found that the person is not performing his responsibility in constitution of company committees, then that person can be can be imprisoned. That means put behind bars. उस व्यक्ति को जेल भी हो सकती है. So these serious actions or serious penal provisions, why they are included? They are included to see to it that every organization shall implement these provisions as it is. If they are not implementing the rules and regulation related to the constitution of committees, then what actions can be taken under the rules of Companies Act 2013 against the persons who are responsible for this? That is mentioned very clearly. Suppose CEO of the organization, he has not constituted these committees, or the committees are not constituted as per the rules and regulation, which says that the audit committee should be headed by an independent director, but instead of independent director, here the CEO is heading the audit committee. Same is the case with nomination and remuneration committee. Same is the case with the other stakeholder relationship committee. So if these rules and regulations which are mentioned in Companies Act 2013 are not followed, then what strict actions can be taken? That is also mentioned. So because of these actions, the company will always try to follow the rule. They will never try to break the rules or violate the rule in, say, whenever they are following, they constituting any committee. Now the next committee is the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. So applicability part, it mandates rules of Companies Act 2014 mandates every company which may include a holding committee company and subsidiary company having net worth of rupees 500 crore or more, turnover of 1000 crore or more, net profit of 5 crore or more during any financial year, to constitute a corporate social responsibility committee for the board. Now here we have seen that this committee is also called as CSR committee, and we all are aware of the meaning of this committee, that is corporate social responsibility. That many companies where this committee is there, their separate fund is allocated every year, that is to be used or utilized for the benefit of the society, and that is called as corporate social responsibility. Now composition of this committee: CSR committee shall be constituted with 3 or more directors, out of which at least one director shall be an independent director. Companies meeting of the board and powers rules have relaxed this requirement as below. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So CSR committee composition, we have seen that at least three directors should be there, and one of the director, if three directors are there, one of the directors shall be an independent director. Now the main role of this committee is to see to it that whatever funds have been allocated by the organization to be utilized for the benefit of the society shall be utilized in that manner only. Suppose the organization has decided that they will make an, say, a fund, they have allocated a fund of say 1 crore rupees that is to be utilized for construction of school in a particular area. Now this CSR committee has to see to it that the funds are properly utilized. That is the responsibility of the CSR committee. Now, not only this is the responsibility, the other main responsibility is that what type of social work is required in a particular area. Suppose the organization is working in an area or existing in an area where the street light facility is not available, or the quality of road is very bad, or the uh, uh, schools, or there is no medical facility available in the near vicinity of the organization. Now such important things can be discussed in the meetings of CSR committee, that as we are working in an area where these facilities are not available for the people. Now the most important facilities can be suggested by this committee to the board of directors, and then the board of directors can finalize the areas where the funds can be allocated, the CSR funds can be allocated on the recommendations of the CSR committee. तो उस एरिया में क्या सबसे जरूरी चीज है जिस पे कंपनी काम कर सकती है, अपना सीएसआर फंड जिसमें एलोकेट कर सकती है, यूज कर सकती है, वो सारी चीजें CSR committee has to suggest to the board of directors, and board of directors on the recommendation of CSR committee, they will implement they will allocate the funds. Once the funds are allocated, again it is the responsibility of the CSR committee to monitor that whether the funds are properly utilized or not, whether the records of utilization of funds is properly maintained or not. अगर स्कूल का कंस्ट्रक्शन है, कंस्ट्रक्शन में क्या मटेरियल यूज हो रहा है, कितना मटेरियल यूज हो रहा है, कैसी क्वालिटी का मटेरियल यूज हो रहा है, all this type of record is to be prepared, is to be kept, and is to be monitored by the corporate social responsibility committee. So that is the function. So we will just discuss most of the function we have already discussed of the CSR committee. We will see whether if any we have not discussed any of the point. First point under the functions of CSR committee is formulating and recommending to the board CSR policy, which shall indicate the activities to be undertaken by the company as specified in Schedule 7. So here Schedule 7 means Schedule 7 of Companies Act 2013 we are talking about, which specifies that which are the areas which can be which can be included in corporate social responsibility, whether construction of school is included or not, whether construction of roads are included or not, whether construction of hospital is included or not. So all the areas where the corporate social responsibility fund can be utilized are mentioned in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. Next is recommending the amount of expenditure to be incurred on the CSR activities. So we had discussed that on which area or uh, what type of social work is needed in that particular area, that is to be decided by the organization, by the this committee. So not only what type of social work can be done for the benefit of the adjoining people or near vicinity people, but how much amount can be incurred on uh, fulfilling those facilities. Suppose street lights are to be maintained, how much the company should allocate for this particular facility is again to be suggested by the or recommended by the CSR committee. So recommendation part they can do, but implementation or sanctioning part is to be done by the main authority, that is the board of directors of the company. So here they can recommend the amount of expenditure to be incurred on CSR activities, कि रोड कंस्ट्रक्शन है तो इतना लाख रुपए या इतने करोड़ का खर्चा आएगा, स्ट्रीट लाइट है तो इतने लाख रुपए लगेंगे, अगर स्कूल बनाना है तो इतने लाख रुपए लगेंगे, हॉस्पिटल बनाना है तो इतने करोड़ लगेंगे. So all these things can be calculated by the CSR committee, and on that basis they can recommend to the organization that this much of funds are required for completing this particular activity. So not only one activity, they can suggest many activities, and out of those many activities or two three activities, one activity can be finalized by the organization, or the organization may shortlist two three activities that can be implemented in that particular year. Monitoring the corporate social responsibility policy of the company from time to time. Monitoring corporate social responsibility policy of the company from time to time means that if the policy of the company, if the rule says that 5% of profit is to be incurred on CSR activities, and if the company wants to say incur more than 5%, there are various companies which are doing more than what is expected in law. If the law says कि 5% प्रॉफिट आपने देना चाहिए, कंपनी बहुत सारी ऐसी भी है जो 5% की जगह 6% कर रही है, 10% कर रही है. So it is up to the company. It is as per the policy of the company. So here again, the recommendations can be made by the CSR committee to the board of directors of the company, of the organization, that the amount should be increased, or the percentage which is to be allocated for CSR can be increased. Now, whether it is accepted or not, it depends upon the authority of the board of directors of the organization. But yes, the recommendation can be done for changing the policy also. Now, the last one is further, the rule provides that CSR committee shall constitute a transparent monitoring mechanism for implementation of the CSR project or programs or activities undertaken by the company. That we have already discussed. that not only recommending the activities, not only the funds that is to be required for completing those activities, but also see to it, the one of the important role of CSR committee is see to it that the activities are fully completed, that monitoring is to be is to be done by the CSR committee. Now these were some of the important committees which all the organization has to have. So first is audit committee, then we discussed about the nomination and remuneration committee, then we discussed about stakeholders uh, relationship committee, and then we discussed about corporate social responsibility committee. When these committees are applicable, that also we have discussed, that if the financial position of the company is such, then it is compulsory for the company to constitute these four committees. So these four committees are also called as mandatory committees or compulsory committees, which are to be constituted by each and every organization. It is compulsory for every organization. Now, the next important thing that we will be discussing is related to convening and conducting committee meetings. When the committees are meeting, how that meeting should take place, how the agenda of the meetings are to be prepared, how the directors who are part of that particular committee, how they are communicated that on so and so date the meeting has been arranged. There are certain rules which are to be followed in convening and conducting committee meetings. Convening means when the meetings are scheduled, are prepared. Conducting means when actually the meeting takes place. So, how the meeting should be arranged, how the meeting should be conducted, there are certain specific rules. How many days notice is to be given to the directors before the date of the meeting? 1 day notice, 2 day notice, or how the notice is to be given? So, all these rules and regulations we are going to discuss in the next lecture. So, please come prepared. It will be easier for us to have a discussion on that topic. So, next session we will be discussing on convening and conducting committee meetings, committee meetings of all these committees, as well as we will discuss the is there any difference in this conduct of meeting of committees and conduct of meetings for the board of directors. Is there any difference? If there is a difference, what is that difference? That also we will be discussing in our next session. So thank you everyone for being present in today's session. Thank you.